Two, one, and we're live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back. It's Friday evening here. It's a wonderful Friday evening here in Poland. And thanks for joining me. I'm here with TDK. It's much easier to just use your initials.
Yeah.
And we're going to be discussing some of the evidence for the Muslim deity Allah being a moon god. And I've already covered this extensively in my Moonotheism series. We're going to look at some different other information as well, because this is something that early scholars were almost unanimous about. And it's only recent scholarship also where Muslims have been trying to influence this. But this is one I think that's not going to go away. There's too much evidence that there is a moon god connection. And I've been digging up some new things. So TDK, welcome and introduce yourself.
Yes. Thank you for having me here. Hello, everyone. It's a privilege to be with Lloyd here and with you guys. Well, as for me, I just started out my channel as just a humble servant of the Lord to fight and combat against lies and just stick with the facts. And it led me to deal with Islam because I was seeing a lot of attacks against the Bible and Christianity because that's how the Quran is. It's mostly to fight against the Christians and the Jews and all these with no like it is historically inaccurate and all these things. So I just went in to attack these claims and come with the facts. And yeah, my first video was about Allah, the moon god, and yeah, Lloyd here he saw my video and that's how we got to come to this video here. So it's a privilege to be here to share the knowledge that I have and to learn as well from you, which I looked up upon your series, which you did a really fantastic job on the research.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, Sarah says interesting topic. Says I'm reading her mind. Um, yeah, let me see. Oh, I've got to share my screen, right? So let me first do this. So welcome everyone, welcome Sarah, and thank you for joining me, TDK. So Sarah, just so you know, I have an extensive, like an 8 hour series on this topic, going through a great deal of archaeological and historical evidence. Now, I know it's very popular today to talk about the Jerusalem thesis and everything from the north. And this is not to say that any of that is false. However, um, few people realize that there were roots of Islam before the year 570 AD. There was actually things happening in 569 and 568 and 567 and 2 centuries and 3 centuries before that. And Islam has roots that go back to at least 800 BC. And it simply repeats a lot of paganism. And we'll look at some new evidence. And TDK, let's start with you, please. If you want to present your evidence, the presentation that you did, the information you presented, that would be great. So we start with you, and then afterwards
Yeah.
I'll show some things and we can discuss.
Okay. Yeah. So if you can just pull up I sent you the image on your email. You could just pull it up and yeah, we'll go from there. So we'll look directly in the Quran about the name Allah and what is the name of the God of Muhammad in
You
Islam. So yeah, let's just check that as you pull that up and we'll go from there. So we'll take Surah
take
1,
a moment.
verse 1. Yes, okay.
Okay, so hold on. Let me just get back to the StreamYard link. And okay, so here we go.
Yeah, so we're going to look at verse 1. So if you were to ask the Muslim what is the name of their God, they would say it's Allah. But then when you ask them, they would say it means the God. So we're going to look at the like where it came from because we know Arabic is also taken from the language Aramaic and Hebrew. It's pulled in from there. So you go back there because in the modern Arabic that you have now, there's changes, and we will see that. So in Surah 1, chapter 1, verse 1, you see it says, in the name of Allah, the most benevolent, the merciful, the all beneficent. And so you see it says, in the
Yes.
name of Allah. And then as you go over to verse 2 now,
So let
if
me
you look
just
at
clarify. So everyone, you can see here Allah,
yeah,
and then you can see Allah. Reading
yeah,
from right to left, you see Allah, and then we can
yes,
see here on Quranic, you've got Allah here, and then you can see the Arabic Allah. All
yes,
right.
that's right.
Okay. And then we get to one. So Surah Fatiha, chapter 1, verse 2. Yeah.
Good. Now you would see the differences. The Aleph has been removed when it's been said,
No vertical bar
Alhamdu,
here.
yeah, Alhamdu, Li, La. So the Aleph has been removed, and we cannot take off the name because the name does not change.
So
So the actual name,
Alhamdulillah, not Alhamdulillah Allah, but
yeah,
Alhamdulillah, and
Li,
then
La.
lah,
So
just
Li
lah,
means two. So Alhamdu, praise be to
two.
La. Yes. So La
Yes.
is the name. Is the name. It would have been Alhamdulillah Allah, because you would see some Muslim whenever they're writing it, they will say Alhamdulillah Ilah, or you could say Alhamdulillah Allah. It would
So
have
if
made
Allah was
sense.
a proper name, they should say praise be to Jimmy, not praise be
Yeah,
to Imi, right?
yeah, that's right. You cannot
His
drop
name's
the
not
letter.
Imi, it's
Yeah,
Jimmy's. Right?
that's right. So from their sources, the Quran directly is pointing out the name Allah. So now we have to question ourselves, what does Al mean? Where is that Al going and pointing towards? I mentioned that it goes back from the Aramaic and the Hebrew. And when we look what Al mean in Aramaic, we could see, if you go down, I have a definition at the bottom, uh, the Al meaning. It's
Yes.
a
Just
Al,
pause a moment. I'll just speak
yeah,
to the audience before, because in this case, you're gonna have Muslims that going ballistic and saying, "Oh, blah blah blah." Yeah.
yeah,
So everyone, we're going to present a variety of information, and we're going to discuss evidence around this topic. And let me be. This is a very controversial topic, and there are still multiple takes on it. And I will state that some of the commonly accepted findings and conclusions are by no means definitive. They're simply the ones that were convenient at the time. And in fact, they come from Muslim sources, and we can find evidence that contradicts this as well. So I think there's too much contradictory evidence, but there's too much strong evidence that points in other directions to simply dismiss that evidence. So I know there's an issue around the word la, and there's some difficulties around that, but let's run with this because there are questions to be asked about this. So, yeah. But thanks. Go on, please.
yeah. So if you would look in the Aramaic, you would find the word Al, or you would see Muslims try to use Allah from the Aramaic, which they're trying to say it
Aramaic,
means,
just
yeah,
Aramaic, right? Yeah.
yeah, Aramaic.
Okay.
So they would say that it's coming from Aramaic, which with Jesus speak, and they would say that Jesus also was saying Allah, which is Allah, but it's not coming from that. We have to go back what Al mean, and from the Hebrew you would have El, or in the Aramaic Al, which means
So El in
God
the
or
Hebrew,
they,
so El in the Hebrew
yeah,
and Al
and
in the Aramaic.
means God. So you would have Eloah or Allah.
Eloha or Allah, like that.
Yes. So
Okay, good.
in the Hebrew, we know that you if you go in the first verse in Genesis chapter 1, you would see that it's used Elohim, which the origin is coming from El. So that's why you would have names that have Israel or like Daniel. You have that same El at the end, which is
Right.
God.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
I will
So
actually. You're
El
right.
or
You're right.
Al is God. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is where,
it's like hallelujah to
yeah,
Yahweh.
yeah, that's right.
Isaiah,
Yeah,
Yeshua. It's also from yeah.
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 And if you ask the Muslims why does these names have those letter or what the name mean, they cannot have an answer except going to the Bible. So the Quran does not have an answer. So now we're seeing where the root is coming from. So
Okay.
the al is a word mean God. So from what we see in verse 2, we see that praise be to Allah. So it did not include
Yeah.
al because al means God by
Yes, everyone
itself.
can see that they dropped
Yeah,
this letter here. What do they call this
the
letter now
aleph,
again? The aleph, right? The aleph. Yeah.
aleph, yeah,
The aleph is dropped, and you skip the aleph, and now you just have la. Compare this
yes,
word to this word. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So,
yeah.
guys, I
So
found him on YouTube. I was watching. So I was doing some work on the moon god stuff. I was looking at new evidence, trying to find some new stuff, and I came across his videos. I liked them, contacted him, and here we are. And
yeah,
also apologies to those guys that I didn't stream this week. It was 35 degrees in Warsaw, believe it or not. It was exhausting and it was just too hot to. So yeah. Anyway, thanks, go on.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. Also, when I looked up your video, I can see the connection that you made with the symbolism in Islam,
Yeah.
and this
Just
would
pause a
also,
moment. You've got
yeah,
you've got a guy with the name of Dum ASS, I think that translates as
okay,
from the Arabic. He says,
yeah,
"You fool! Allah is a combination of al and ilah, not al plus la. Ha ha, fool." Now, before I ban him, I just want to let him know that I will be discussing this. Now, I want the audience to know that in all of the early archaeology, every single find, the Christians never used Al Ilah. Let me go back to this here. Christians have never, ever used Allah prior to the Muslim conquest, because the Christian use of the word Allah is a very late event after the Muslim conquest, because the Muslims used it. However, Muslims use it as the proper name of God, like Jimmy. Imagine Allah was called Jimmy. That's the proper name. However, for Christian Arabs, it is Allah as in the God. It's just becomes the God, right? So that's all it is. And the God happens to be called Yahweh. So it's a shorthand for saying the deity Yahweh, right?
yeah,
However, on all of the inscriptions that have been found by of Christian Arabs, right, they always use Al Ilah, right? Al Ilah.
yes,
Always, Christians never, before the Muslim conquests, before Islam, never used Allah, only Al Ilah, which is the Arabic version of the Greek Hotheos, the God, the deity. And that deity has a name, Yahweh. So for Christians, it's the God by the name of Yahweh. For Muslims, it's a God that has the name Allah. Would that be correct?
yeah, yeah. That's the name of their God, and you would see the difference with Ilah. So if it was Al Ilah, he's trying to say that it's a combination, but it's not the combination. If you look at the Alhamdulillah, the Ilah is not there. Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah. There's no Ilah.
Right.
So that makes the distinction from what he's trying to say there. So yeah, so we check with the Hebrew and the Aramaic. So now another, I don't know if you have anything to add, or we could go to this surah, which will also
Okay,
bring
just
more.
pause a moment. You want to do
Yeah,
Surah 677, right? Yeah, this is Abraham.
yeah, this is connecting to the moon worship,
Yeah.
the moon god. Oh, also one point to make, the difference is they would try to say that Allah said don't worship the moon, but the moon
Yes.
god is not worshiping the moon, but worshiping the god of the moon. So that's a difference there.
Ah,
The
good
moon
point.
deity.
Very good,
Yeah. So they would use
very good
that
point.
surah as saying that no, it's not in connection. But yeah, just wanted to point that out. Yeah, I don't know if you want to touch on this surah here,
Yeah.
surah 677,
So,
because you made some connection with some of them who would went back to the original, like
yeah. Okay, so
the true God.
I discussed this at length in my Moonotheism series. In the
Yeah,
Muslim sources, the Muslims explicitly make the claim. Now, whether this is whether we can believe the sources is another story, but this is their official sources. Within the Muslim Sirah, within the Sunnah of Muhammad, the Muslims reject Christianity and they reject Judaism as false. They reject both religions as completely false, and they go look for the original religion of Abraham. Right? This is within the Muslim Sunnah, and then for men they break with polytheism and they go look for the original religion of Abraham, and they state they're looking for the religion before Abraham followed Yahweh. So they
Yeah.
reject his acceptance of Yahweh and following Yahweh. They look for the religion he followed. Now we know from the historical record, we know from the early historical record that Abraham was a Sabaean, a moon worshipper. This was the same as the moon worship religion of Yemen. The religion of Yemen was the same religion as that of Babylon. They just had different names, obviously the local names for the deities, but it was the same Arabian pantheon that was used in Babylon. So Muslims claim in their own sources that they are following the religion of Abraham, which was the religion of Babylon.
Yeah, that's right. I love that that point that you made from your series of monotheism. So yeah, uh, that's a really and I love how you pointed out the
Yeah, and
symbolism
Abraham,
because they don't know why they have these. They would just make up some other
yeah,
claims.
yeah. So tell us about Surah 677.
Yeah, so Surah 677 we can see where the moon worship because Abraham, this is who they understand of Abraham. Abraham used to, as it says there, when he saw the moon rising in splendorous, he said, "This is my Lord." But when the moon set, he said, "Unless my Lord guide me, I shall surely be among those who go astray." So Abraham obviously had pagan, as you would have mentioned, the moon worship. So it's in right in the Quran as well, going back to the
Yeah,
worship
I
of
mean,
it.
Allah is the
Yeah,
Lord of Sirius, and Sirius was one of the deities in the pantheon of the
yeah,
astral pantheon, and Allah is the Lord of Sirius. The Lord of Sirius was,
yeah.
so
That's it.
he's the deity, the moon deity that's above
E-
Sirius, the star. It's
Yeah,
insane.
exactly. Yeah, it's all in connection. It's all tying together, pointing to Allah as the moon deity.
Yeah, so
So yeah,
Abraham says that the moon is his Lord, and unless his Lord guides him, he will go astray.
now he goes to the sun, which is Akbar. This is which is a bigger
Let
one.
me
So he's
just get to
yeah,
that so everyone can see.
yeah. So there's like the sun worship and the moon worship. So we know that yeah, many
And
cultures
on
yeah.
the doors of the Kaaba, what do we have? The moon and the sun.
So yeah, it's all linking in connection with this worship. So yeah, he went to the sun and says, "This is my Lord." And the word is used is Akbar, which is bigger. So he was looking for the bigger. And what do they say? Who do they call Akbar? This is Allah is,
Allahu
yeah,
Akbar.
good. He is bigger. So it's all from these are the practices there Muhammad added, but remember, he was making his religion and drawing from all these sources, the Sabians, the Jews, the Christians, and those around him that he draw his beliefs from and putting them together. That's why you have these conflicts and contradiction and lead into these types of belief. So yeah, it's all pointing that he is. So we will continue to look at the name again, the Al or L. It's right in the Quran as well, and even their own translator is pointing to the same thing that I'm referring. So it's not just me alone pointing this out, because Allah is the. It was said that he has three daughters. So we're gonna look at that. If you want to pull that up, like it's in
Which one is that?
53, Surah 53, verse 19, the star. So we're going to the star now. The chapter is
53:19. So let me
yeah,
bring that up. 53, 53:19.
yeah.
So
You could
have you
bring up Arbery translation.
find Aubrey?
Yeah,
So have you considered Alat and Al Uzza
yeah. And if you look
and
at
Manat, the third, the other? Yeah.
yes, so if you go back to the
Let
previous
me
verse,
let me just
19.
Yeah, because I know I like using this one, but let's just do to like 24.
Yeah, you could pull it at the bottom. Yeah.
Let's just remove Pictol and Yusuf Ali.
Yeah.
So
So you can
indeed,
see
he
right
saw
here.
one of the, yeah,
Yeah. Verse 19.
15, okay, yeah,
Yeah. So as I would have mentioned that the al mean God, or the
yeah.
L is meaning God. So
Elat.
you can yeah, you
I think
see
it's
our
this one,
very
right?
yeah, our very is making yeah. He's making the connection now, pointing that al or L is meaning God, so God, or you could use goddess because the daughters of Allah. So he's saying God Lat and God Uzza, and it's the same al is used for Allah, which is God
Okay,
La.
so the same. So in other words, we have, so you've got Al La, then we
Yeah,
have Al
Lat
Lat, and we have Al
Uzza.
Uzza. Al,
Yeah,
Al, and Al.
exactly. So
So
even their
they split the names
translator,
like that.
yeah,
The
is
Lat,
saying
the
L.
La, and the Uzza.
Yeah, it's God Lat,
Okay.
God Uzza, and God La. So it's all making the connection now, pointing that it's drawn from the Aramaic al, which means God or deity. So God
Okay.
La.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So again, this ties back right into why he said Alhamdulillah, why he
La.
says praise be to Allah, because the Al is God, the name of the
Praise
God.
be to La. Yeah. So we went from Al La to just
So
La.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
I
right.
mean, at the very minimum, I would think there's a question here. If it's Allah, right, then it's not, then Al is not the. But the way that they split the name, then it shows that the proper name seems to be La, and
Yeah,
Al is the definite article. It's not actually the name Allah. So
yeah,
at least, although I will say that what I've discovered, I mean, and as we've all discovered, there is
yeah,
so much contradictory information within
y-
Islam, things that can go
yeah,
either way because there's evidence for different sides sometimes.
yeah. That's right. Because as you would have mentioned, the Christians were under the occupation of Muslim,
Yep.
and yeah, they started to use that name. So now you have Muslims trying to use and say that why do the Christian use it, which you already have explained the
Yeah.
the timing that it was used.
Actually, you know what? Can I go through some evidence? Because after my discussion with you
Yeah,
briefly, and then after, I wanted to go through some evidence and we can have a discussion about this, and this will be useful to the audience. This builds on my Moonotheism info. Okay, so I want to go through some research I've done using very good sources. At least I hope they're very good sources. So scholars Charles Russell Coulter and Patricia Turner, they put forward the theory that Allah's name may be derived from a pre-Islamic god called Aelia, right? Aelia.
yeah,
Now, it is very hard to find anything on this deity, Aelia, right? Obviously, if it exists, first of all, it's decades old. It probably has not been digitized, and it's in some archive in a university somewhere. Okay, that's one thing.
yeah,
Now, some of his characteristics they stated were based on lunar deities, moon gods like Al Makkah. Have you heard of a city in Saudi Arabia called Makkah? Sound
yeah,
familiar?
yes,
Right? And Al Makkah is the moon god Shin, which is the chief deity of Babylon, the chief deity of Arabia as well. Isn't that
yeah,
coincidence? A little city called Makkah with a
yeah.
deity called Makkah, who was the chief god of the Kaaba in Makkah. Does that sound like a coincidence to you?
No, it doesn't. It's all tying in together.
Yeah. And then, of course, you've got Kal, which is actually Ka'el, Ka'el, right?
Yeah,
Makkah, Ka'el,
yes,
Shakir, Wad. Now, this word Wad, now you might think these are different deities. Well, let me give you a scenario. You're walking down a street and you see the church of the Savior. Then you see another church next door called the Church of the Lamb. Then you have the Church of the Redeemer. Then you have the Church of Jesus Christ, and then you've got the Church of the Baptist, right? And you
yeah,
go, holy moly, five different gods on the street. Are those five different gods, or is that one god with different characteristics?
yeah. That's it. Different characteristics.
So what is love? So this is basically a different characteristic of the deity, of the chief deity, right? Now, Julius Wellhausen in the 1800s suggested that Hubal was regarded as a son of Al-Lat. And this
Yeah.
is going to be really interesting. So
Yeah, it is.
Hubal. Now, what was the name of the chief deity of the Kaaba? Do you know?
Yeah, it's Hubal. He was the chief.
It's Hubal. And where do we find this? In the Muslim sources. They tell us explicitly, not
Yeah,
ambiguously, they tell us explicitly the Allah of the Kaaba, his name is Hubal. Because if
yeah,
we take Allah as the God, right, as a
yeah,
definite article and not as a name, then he has then this Allah has no name. But the Muslim sources tell us the name of Allah is Hubal, and
yeah.
Muhammad is consecrated by his grandfather. His what's his grandfather called? Abdul
Uh,
Muttalib, right? I think,
yeah,
or was it? So his grandfather consecrates Muhammad when he's after he's born to Hubal, and who is Hubal? Hubal. So
yeah,
that's Hubal. I mean, this is in the Muslim sources. I've shown this in Moonotheism. Your thoughts on this so far?
yeah. Yeah. I definitely looked it up, and this I was having the same connection as well with Hubal and Allah. So yeah, and Hubal is said to be the moon deity as well. So it's all coming and tying together with what we're
Right.
making. Yes, so far.
Yeah, so Allah was known from Jewish and Christian sources, except we know for a fact from the archaeology that Christians always use Al-Ilah. They never used Allah. This was
Yeah,
never a term that they used, right? That
yeah,
that only came much later after the Muslim conquests. Now, the idea that God in Islam, right, Allah, was a moon god arose first, it says here, in 1901 in the scholarship of the archaeologist Hugo Winkler, German archaeologist. He identified Allah with a pre-Islamic Arabian deity known as La or Hubal. Now,
yeah,
Muslims love to debunk this man, except this man was considered an absolute genius. Okay,
yeah,
so Hugo Winkler suggested there was a moon god cult in Mecca. Makkah, there's Al Makkah, the chief deity of Arabia. Good grief, who was Hubal, who was Sin, who was the god of Babylon. That just seems so weird.
yeah. Sin is the moon god as well, so it's all tying together.
Yeah. Another scholar called Karl Brückelmann repeated that. Okay. Then you had Rickmans also associated Hubal with the moon, but we can definitely do that these days that we have more information. So
Yeah,
now, then you've got Detlef Nielsen, right? They try to simplify this a bit too much, who claim that Arabian religion was a religion that was based on a triad of Father Moon, Mother Sun, and Sun Venus Star. And this is actually there's a lot of truth to that. Father
yeah,
Moon, Mother Sun, and Sun Venus Star. There's a lot of truth to that. Right. So now Hugo Winkler is considered a genius in languages. He discovered the Hittite Empire. This was a time when this was when the Bible was under attack from these new revisionists. And they were saying the Bible is not true, all of it's just fiction, and the Hittite Empire does not exist. And then Hugo Winkler, being such a genius with languages, started to read these tablets. They say here he he had an unfortunate personality. He was someone who made an instant enemy of anyone he met. But Winkler apparently could read Assyrian cuneiform like the morning newspaper. And
oh,
this genius deciphered the second cuneiform language on these tablets, what we now call Luvian, the language of the Hittites. And this
oh,
marked the
interesting.
end of the question of whether the Hittites existed and who they were. The Bible was decisively vindicated because of Hugo Winkler, right? And
Yeah,
the scholars that originally found this evidence of the Hittites had used the Old Testament, two guys called Sayce and Wright. And then Hugo Winkler gave them the piece of information that proved that the Bible was history, not myth. So your
yeah,
thoughts on that, TDK?
yeah. That's really interesting. And yeah, I would have noticed that they tried to disprove him, but yeah, from all of this that he has found, it's definitely proven the Bible to be true, and historically, when we look back, as he did his source, yeah, you definitely said he's a genius indeed to make such connection. Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
So they tried to debunk him, but it turns out the man actually is a very good scholar, right? So
Yeah.
now let's see. Now we go to Hyderabad. Hyderabad, that's in Pakistan, if I'm correct,
I
right?
think India or somewhere.
Hyderabad, India,
Um,
India. It's a Muslim city,
somewhere.
whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
so so in Hyderabad, they actually are using Hugo Winkler's book, The History of Babylonia and Assyria. They actually use his book in the
Yeah.
university. So,
Yeah.
and he says here, he speaks of Shin, the moon god, was worshipped in southern Babylonia. Okay, so he speaks of that. He speaks of Shin, the moon god. So he knew
Yeah.
that then already. All right, now then they also speak of Shin, the moon god of Haran, which is in Turkey, just across the Syrian border. Okay. And it
Yeah.
says here, it is no accident when one of the biblical narratives makes Ur and the other Haran the scene of Abraham's early life, because
Yeah.
Abraham worshipped Shin, the moon god
Yeah.
of Haran. And the Muslims claim that they worship the religion of Abraham, not before he followed Yahweh. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's really interesting because yeah, as we know, Abraham before he had the covenant with Yahweh, his father as well, they also were pagans, and so yeah, this is definitely making it such a deep connection there.
And you can do it too as a very Hu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Baal. Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, 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 that's interesting.
Right. So let me continue through some of this evidence then. And so this now is Arthur Jeffrey, right? Islam, Muhammad and his religion. He's one of the great scholars of Islam from the 20th, early 20th century. And he speaks here of the Mesopotamian period in his book. And he speaks of Shin was the most important god of Babylonia. And we meet also with the worship of Baal Haran, the god of Haran. So now we know that Shin is Baal. Baal is Shin,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And Baal is a moon deity, right? So let's continue here. And then we've got the same text, I believe, right? They speak of Allah. The name Allah, as the Quran is witness, was well known in pre Islamic Arabia. Now, my question, TDK, does the Quran explain who Allah is, or does it assume that they all know who it is?
it just it assumes that they know who it is. That's why when you ask them who is Allah, you have a bunch of different answers. Like, yeah,
Yeah, so it assumes that the audience knows. And it says here the name Allah was well known in pre Islamic Arabia in both it and its feminine form, Al Lat. Oh my,
wow, interesting.
are found not infrequently among the Theophorus names or Theophoric names in inscriptions from North Arabia. Now, what is interesting, Jeffries then goes on to tell us so we've got Allah and Alat,
Yeah,
right, as a pair, and it's well known. In fact, what was Muhammad's father's name?
I can't remember it exactly.
Abdullah.
Yeah,
Abdullah, the slave of
Abdallah,
Allah.
the La. Yeah, he had the La in his name. Yeah,
He had Allah in
yeah,
his name. And don't Muslims still debate, did Muhammad's parents become Muslims and would Allah have taken them to paradise because they weren't Muslims and therefore did
yeah,
they? Isn't that debate on? Like they're wondering, but hold on. But if he worshipped Allah and was the slave of Allah, why would he not go to paradise with Allah? Isn't that a good question?
yeah. That's a very good question. It really is.
Yeah. Your thoughts further. Any other thoughts you want to add before I go on?
No, I think that's pretty clear because yeah, they did worship Allah before, and yet still they're considered as not going to the Allah that he worships now to his paradise. But yeah,
So it must have been a different Allah, right? So there's a problem with Allah here. So the
yeah,
common theory is that the name Allah, right? That the name Allah is formed from illah, the common word for a God or the God, right? A definite
yeah,
article. And the article al, thus al ilah, the God, becomes Allah, a
yeah,
contraction, in other words. So the
yeah,
theory is, and this actually comes from the Muslims, believe it or not, it actually came
yeah,
originally from the Muslims.
yeah.
Yeah, go on, please.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And this is what they were trying to say that the contraction here, which it's Al Ilah becomes Allah. So that's what you see that one comment was made that 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 comment that he made about al plus Allah. But yeah, as we
Yeah.
look back from their sources in the Quran, the al is coming from el or al in Arabic, God.
Now you spoke about Aramaic, and Jeffries tells us this theory is untenable. He says the name Allah could not have
Yeah,
come from Al-Ilah, right? He
yeah,
says no, it's not a contraction of Al-Ilah. He says the name is one of the words borrowed into Arabic in pre-Islamic times from Aramaic.
yeah.
And he
That's
speaks
right.
of old Arabian paganism in South Arabia.
Yeah, that's what I
Allah
see.
existed as a pagan deity before Muhammad.
Yeah, and we know that because from the sources they worship Allah before Muhammad.
Right. So the name was used in pre-Islamic Arabia, okay, and it's evidenced by inscriptions from North Arabia. So in other words, Allah was around before Muhammad was around, and Allah was a pagan god,
Yeah, that's
right?
right. It's
Then,
just
yeah,
like he remodeled it into something that they know it as today, but the root is coming from the pagan god, the moon god, and the moon worship.
right. And there's the feminine form Alat, which is also found in these inscriptions as a pair, indicating a polytheistic context for the use of these terms before Islam,
Yeah, that's interesting.
right?
Yeah,
And this is part of a broader pattern of linguistic borrowing from Aramaic that occurred in pre-Islamic times. So yeah, that's really fascinating, and I'll add a few more things here. So yeah, so Evan Angel says Momo and his cronies just made things up as they went along, pretty
yeah,
much.
that's right.
Yeah. Okay, isn't there a hadith that says Momo's father and mother are in hell? I think so.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. Now, if his father's name is Abdullah, the slave of Allah,
Yeah,
then how come if he was the servant of Allah, the slave of Allah, then why would Allah send him to hell for not worshiping Allah? Isn't that an odd thing?
exactly. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So that's just the weirdest thing. So now a theophoric name, these are names that incorporate the name of a deity, right? Or a word meaning God to invoke the protection of that deity, like a talisman, like a magic spell, right?
Yeah,
Now it comes from the Greek theophoros, bearing or carrying a god, right? Now, for instance, you have names like Theodore, God's gift. Now we have Al Ilah, which comes from Ho Theos, Theodore, God's gift. Ho Theos, Al Ilah,
yeah,
the God, right?
yeah,
Yon, Yah, Yonatan. So it's actually Yah, Natan,
yeah,
Yanatan. Yahweh has given. Now,
yeah,
the most famous of the Sirah, right, within the Sunnah, the most famous biography of Muhammad was written by this guy, supposedly Alfred Guillaume, head of the Department of the Near and Middle East School of Oriental Studies and professor of Arabic at the University of London and later Princeton. And he writes here, this is the guy that wrote, let me actually just reference the book. Um, let me just bring it up quickly. This is the life of Muhammad, right? So this is the most famous biography of Muhammad, and it was translated by Alfred Guillaume. So this is the most famous, you can say the Gospels of Muhammad, if you will, right?
yeah,
He writes, the customs of heathenism or paganism have left an indelible mark on Islam. In other words, one that cannot be deleted, notably in the
yeah,
rites of pilgrimage, right? The Hajj.
yeah.
And
That's right.
Professor Augustus Strong has stated that Islam is heathenism in monotheistic form, paganism in monotheistic form. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's really well said. Like that's well put. And yes, I do agree. As I mentioned, it's like he remodeled it, so you would have those paganism inside of him, and it's left a mark definitely indeed. So yeah, I like that
Wow.
quote here. I like
Sheikh
that quote.
Boyardi says, well, thank you very much, Sheikh. Really, guys, if you do like the content, and I've been putting out a lot of short video content, which requires a lot of research. I'm actually busy working with someone on a series on the apostles and the early church fathers. So we'll do the apostles and early church fathers. So I've been doing some research on that. I've already written a script for St. Peter. I've done most of the script for St. Paul, and so those are upcoming. So that's I've been doing also a bit less lives to do more research. But Sheikh Biyadi says, and thank you again, I made a mild statement that Islam seems to be created from other religions, and Google censored me. Remember this in the future. You can't even send money without Big Brother watching over our shoulders. Wow, that's scary. So, but thank you.
Yeah.
So, guys, if you like what I do, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, bomb this on social media. Much appreciated. And also, TDK's links are in the description. I think it's in the name and also in the description. You can check out his channel, and he has a Discord. You know me, I don't really go on Discord, um, but he's got a Discord if you want to have chats there. So yeah, you I mean, so these two claims that these scholars are making. I mean, these aren't nobodies. These are serious scholars,
Yeah.
and I agree. I fully agree. So you said about the Hajj was your thoughts on the Hajj being a pagan rite?
Yeah, it definitely is because it was practiced before Muhammad and he just implemented in his religion, in Islam. As that quote said it perfectly, Islam is hedonism in monotheistic form. So you have the Hajj and you have them like it's basically like an idolizing when they're going there, and this says that the black stone forgives sins, and all these connection that they're making through that. So yeah, it definitely left a mark on Islam, and it can't be denied. And when they're questioned, they don't really have answers, or they make up some explanation which is not like from references or facts. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I've covered this already in monotheism. You know what I should do? Um, I should go back to some old material. Like there's some great stuff on St. Paul, whom I've always been fascinated with, and I should go back over that material, refresh it, and represent it on the channel. But also monotheism. I mean people need to know this. Now one thing I'll say that people can argue over La. I mean, which we've seen. There's some evidence for La, at least in the Quran, right? You
Yeah.
got to ask yourself why. But so you can argue about La, fine, that's one thing. But then you have hundreds of pieces of data that just continue presenting Allah as a moon deity. I mean, do you ignore that then? So you argue on this one tiny point and ignore the mountain of evidence on the other
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what they try to do. They try to zoom in on this one point, and they act like the rest of facts that's there is not there. Like they ignore it.
Right. Yeah, so let me just finish this and nearly done with this. Now, this is Hastings' Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics. And if you want the evidence directly from the text, I've got it over here, Hastings' Encyclopedia. It's right here. This is the actual text, right? And I'll come to that in a moment. So Allah is a proper name applicable only to the Arabs' peculiar God. In other words, Hastings' Encyclopedia, and this goes back to what, to the 1800s, 1900s, early, whatever, 1800s, maybe before. And it says Allah is a specifically Arabian deity, which would make him a pagan. It's not Yahweh,
Yeah,
it's not the Christian God.
yeah, that's right. It's an that's also you would have if there's a Muslim, they will have to go and speak in Arabic, or when you ask the name of the God, they would obviously point to Allah, and yeah, it's all pointing towards the Arabian God, Allah, the moon
God,
God.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then and guys, I couldn't find this. I didn't have the time. I was looking for this reference in the Encyclopedia of Religion. Apparently, there's multiple volumes, so I managed to look through like two volumes, and I couldn't get to the rest of it. Or one, no, I looked through one volume, and I couldn't get to the rest in time. But it says here in the Encyclopedia of Religion, Allah is a pre-Islamic name corresponding to the Babylonian Baal. That's just another spelling of Baal,
yeah,
which is insane. So yeah, and I'll go here. This is the Hastings Encyclopedia. It says Allah is a proper name applicable to their peculiar God. And they say here, and it's worth reading, just wait for it to load. It says here, At-Tabari, the greatest commentator on the Quran of the old school, says very little. So At-Tabari doesn't even know where the name Allah comes from. And he says, right, they speak of the possibility of the contraction of Al-Illah to Allah in Tafsir number 40 or whatever. So
yeah,
of chapter 1, verse 40. or whatever it is. I know whatever it says here. So there's no evidence that it comes from Al Ilah. That's not a confirmed.
Yeah.
That's not a confirmed fact. It's a theory put forward. And then Al Razi says he says here he deals with it twice in one passage, asking whether God can have a known proper name. Like, can we know the name of Allah? Can we know the name of God? Like, no. And the first position, he says, the earlier philosophers denied it. So Muslim philosophers stated, no, you can't know the name of God. So therefore, it is actually just the God
Yeah.
in Ara, right? It's just the God because how can you know the name of the supreme, ineffable deity? And then he
Yeah.
says, if a thing named could not be known, there was no use for the name because you can't know Allah. Allah is so, we can't know him. So therefore, there's no point in having a name. Your thoughts on this?
Mm, yeah, this is the thing they don't. That's why I said they don't know who they worship truly. They really don't know. Like they just know that they worship the God and they have no idea who they're worshiping. So yeah, with this that we're doing here, we're going back to the practices and where it came from, showing that it is from paganism, the worship of the moon god. But yeah, Muhammad did just remodel it as that one quote says. Yeah, hedonism in monotheistic form. Yeah.
Right? Paganism in a monotheistic form, yeah. Is there a connection to the Aramaic name Elahi? I mean, that may be the case, right?
Mm,
I don't know enough. Century since, I don't know enough. I really don't know sufficiently to answer that. I'd have to look into that. I've been doing research on this, looking at some new evidence, and I mean, you're seeing some of it now as I have it. Um, yeah, let me finish this document, and then it goes on. This is then they speak of Noldeka, right? Muhammad discovered, okay, the Meccans believing in a supreme deity whom they called Allah. So, according to Noldeka, one of the top scholars of Arabia ever, right, and he's quoted by all of these top scholars we follow today. Noldeka says that that Muhammad already found his people believing in Allah, right,
yeah.
and with Allah they associated other minor deities, some tribal, others called the daughters of Allah. Muhammad's only reform was to assert the solitary existence of Allah. Other scholars tell us, based on the archaeology, that Muhammad just took all of these gods and just shoved them all together into one and said, okay, now we're going to call all of them Allah. We just make it one thing. Instead of
Yeah.
a million gods, we'll make it one.
Yeah.
That's what Kuhn, a scholar called Kuhn, stated. He simply just smashed them all together into one and said, okay, we'll call all of them Allah. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's accurate because there was many practices. He just wanted to like have a religion of of his own because the Jews didn't accept him, neither the Christians, so they rejected him. He goes against them, and then he came with his own, and he took Allah. Yeah, as you said, he smashed all of them together. That's why you have a lot of paganism in Islam, at least practices, and he made it into one. And yeah, he called him Allah.
Yeah, and a good question. Why a crescent moon and not the full moon? Exactly. Why the Hilal? And Hilal is a pagan god. It's one of the faces of Allah, but Hilal is a pagan crescent deity, pagan moon, crescent moon deity. And then yeah, Mary's mentioned in the Quran, but none of his parents are, not even his wives. You know, I mean, and we've got to go to the secondary sources like the tafsirs, like the Sunnah. We've got to go to those to get like the names of Muhammad's wives because they're not in the Quran. And then the Muslims tell us, oh, those are all daif, those are all matruk. No, those are all false. Those are fabricated. Those are you can't use those. And like, okay, then how do you know what the names of Muhammad's wives are if it's not in the Quran?
Yeah, that's right. They always do that. They always whenever it goes against them, they don't want they don't want to accept it. But if it's for them, they take it. So they pick
Yeah,
and choose. Yeah.
exactly. And it says here, Allah is a proper name applicable only to the peculiar Arabian deity, the pagan deity of Arabia. I mean, so doesn't this show us that scholars in the 17 and 1800s already were saying Allah is a moon god?
Yeah. That's right.
See what Sekrima said. Muhammad's father was named Abdullah, meaning servant of Allah. So clearly, Allah was worshipped as one of the many pagan deities. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, of course. And I got to find this Hubal. So we got to find. Yeah, the Quraysh had an idol by a well in the middle of the Kaaba called Hubal. Hubal was the chief god of the Kaaba, because I'm pretty sure that says Kaaba, right? And let's continue. Now have a look here. This is Abdul Muttalib, sorry, denied this, right? So he would make two arrows for the Kaaba. He was doing divination, right? And they were thrown besides Hubal. Hubal was an image in the middle of the Kaaba, the greatest of their images, because he was Allah,
Yeah.
right? And notice Abu Sufyan ibn Harb at the Battle of Uhud when he cried, "Arise, Hubal." In other words, Allah Hubal, make
Uh,
your religion victorious. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Hubal.
yeah.
Arise, Hubal. Yeah, sounds familiar somehow. I've heard that somewhere before. Good grief. Hubal in the middle of the Kaaba, the statue of Hubal. And then again, they mentioned the Kaaba. Then they mentioned Hubal, Hubal being the greatest of the idols in Mecca. And then you've got to circumcise a boy, they took him to Hubal. Or they make a marriage or bury a body, they took him to Hubal. Hubal seems important. And then Abdullah was Abdul Muttalib's Allah. Actually, apparently, this is also from Allah, this Muttalib, Allah,
Yeah.
favorite son. I mean, at least the one source said so. And
Okay.
he was the father of the apostle of Allah. Now, hold on. Isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
Abdullah was the father of the apostle of Allah. They use God, not Allah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And isn't that weird? And Abdul Muttalib stood by Hubal praying to Allah, but Hubal was the Allah. So,
Yeah. It's really interesting tying all these
let
things
me see
together.
what Crusader General said. Something I missed. What did he say? What did Crusader General say that I missed? Ah, here you go. Thank you. Why does Arabic lettering look like feces and its phonetic sounds like toilet straining? That's okay. That's YouTube's gonna punish me for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, Nu says the word Allah Akbar is not written in the Quran anywhere. Neither is the names of Muhammad's wives, his parents. It comes from secondary, tertiary sources. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when we use those sources, they tell us it's fake sources.
Yeah, that's
Like,
it. Yeah.
okay. So yeah, but can we see that Allah was around when Muhammad was still a baby? And here Muhammad is consecrated to Allah. Now, if Muhammad was consecrated to Allah as a baby, why does he have to create a new Allah and a new religion?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's a good point.
This is true. Sekhrima says the Hubal idol had a gold right hand, and the Quran makes a big deal out of Allah's right. That is true. They would break
Oh,
off the right
yeah.
hand of clay and attach a gold right hand. That's true.
Yeah, that's right. Also, Allah has he doesn't have a left hand. He has two right hand.
You know, some people, and I've read this interpreted as when they say Allah has two right hands, they mean as in correct,
Yeah.
righteous hands,
Yeah.
which means that you've got Allah and you've got the Holy Spirit and you've got the Son, the two right hands of Allah. Does that make some sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah, there's some other points as well, like with the you have Allah, then you have Jibril, then you have Muhammad as well. Without those trees, you don't have Islam. So three and also you would notice that they would say and repeat certain words or
Right.
phrases. They would repeat it three times. So yeah, he also took those as well, like the three Trinity.
Yeah. And then oddly enough, you've also got here Muhammad is consecrated to Hubal, and they thank Allah. They pray to Allah, which is Hubal in the middle of the Kaaba, right? We've established that already. So he takes Muhammad before Hubal in the middle of the Kaaba, and he prays to Allah, thanking Allah for this gift, which is Muhammad, the baby. And then, of course, people are proclaiming tonight has risen a star under which Muhammad is to be born, a star. So now the stars as well. Now we're back to that. So yeah, I thought this would be interesting for the audience, and I can show one other thing. Actually, I think that was the end of that within my. Yeah, let me sure I got nothing here. Yeah, one last. Baal is the Babylonian god Belu or Baal, the supreme god amongst the Canaanites. And now you're looking at the Canaanite god, because Baal and Hubal was actually across the whole of Arabia, from Babylon all the way down to Yemen, was the same god. Different names, same god.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. The names may differ, but yeah, the same God.
Yeah, and I wanted to show the audience this then, just because I'm trying to reinforce your argument as well. So I want to show you this is Yazid, Yah, as in Yahweh. Yazid the first, caliph after Muhammad. Okay, Yazid the first. He was a caliph after Muhammad, and notice the cross on this inscription,
Yeah,
right? And this is the pre-consonantal. It's the consonantal text. It's the text pre the introduction of the dots and the vowels, right?
yeah,
So it's a consonantal text. This is in Arabia, right? So what they have is here a Christian inscription with no diacritical or vowel markings from the 6th or the 7th century AD mentions a king named Yazid, Yazid, Yahweh, and includes a prayer for Allah, for God to be mindful of the king. Okay, it's found in Qasr Burku, northeastern Jordan. And the inscription demonstrates the use of the term Al-Ilah, the God, in Christian contexts before Islam. So all of the archaeology supports the distinction between the Christian usage of Al-Ilah and the Islamic concept of Allah. I'll just continue that. Your thoughts on that?
yeah. Again, it's reinforcing the sources are just going against what they're teaching, that Allah is just the contraction, which is not definite, it's just a theory, but they definitely use Al-Ilah for the God instead of Allah. So
Allah.
the name Allah is more of the name. As we're getting so far, it's the name of the God, the
Yeah,
main God.
yeah. Clearly there was some kind of change, but who knows? But it seems to be around long. It was just one of the many names of Shin, the chief god of Babylon. And
Yeah,
this is interesting. Roger Johnson writes Jesus is called the chief cornerstone. So Satan, the prince of darkness, set up his own black stone in the corner of the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, Islam's holiest site. That is a really interesting comment. What do you
yeah.
think, TDK?
Yeah, it's really interesting because yeah, definitely you would have, like, for example, Jesus Christ, and then you would have the devil would come with the Antichrist. He would come with his own, like, copy, but it's just he's doing it in his way. So yeah, that's an interesting comment. The devil just always wants to have his side of things, the opposite.
Yeah. No, true. And then just on this point, so the inscription says, "May God be mindful of Yazid the king." The king. It says, "Takara alila Yazidu al Malik." Okay, Takara al illa Yazidu al Malik. Right. So may al illa be mindful of Yazidu al Malik, the king. So definitely says Al Ilah and not Allah. So the use of
Yeah,
Allah in Christian text did not happen before Islam. It was
yeah,
simply just cultural assimilation, the Borg, in other words, as someone mentioned.
yeah.
And
That's right.
yeah, now the question is, was this a Christian king? Did the history get changed? Did someone corrupt the history, or was it a Christian servant of a Muslim king? You just have to wonder. And if it's sixth
Yeah,
century, then it's a little early. It's kind of before Muhammad's time, kind of.
yeah. That's true.
Then that leaves questions. And if it's seventh century, then there's still questions to be asked.
Yeah,
And also, it is reminiscent of sixth century Aramaic practice in early Arabic script.
mm,
Aramaic practice.
interesting. Yeah,
So again, we're
it,
back to Aramaic because you
it's
started with
going back.
Aramaic.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I would mention the Aramaic, which it links back to
Yeah.
the Al. Yeah,
So yeah, look, I mean, so guys, I have an entire presentation on this particular topic, Allah versus Yahweh, which introduces us. It's only this one is 23 slides, and Also, yeah, so we mentioned, okay, the I mentioned earlier, there's always this argument over the Egyptian Iya,
Yeah.
right? Iya, which sometimes presented as La. Now, there seems to be a case for La. Okay, I think it needs to be examined. We don't have the evidence, but there's the question of why does the Quran suddenly call this deity La? Okay. Now, of course, there's
Yeah.
the Egyptian deity called Iya. Iya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Iya
would have.
also has multiple other names. There's Ya, there's Ja, there's a whole bunch of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
In my
question being,
video.
it's a moon god as well. He's also a moon god.
Yeah, that's right.
And he also has another name called Thoth, right? So
Yeah.
Ea Thoth, right? He's a moon god, Ea Thoth. And Thoth has a name, Hermes in the Greek and Mercury in the Roman. And his full name is Hermes in the occult. That's Hermes Trismegistus. Ea, the moon god of Egypt, who is also called Thoth, who is the god of wisdom, who brings the hikmah into which religion? Islam.
Yeah.
And Hermes Trismegistus is revered by occultists as this god who brings wisdom to the world, the hikmah in Islam. And he is the second prophet mentioned in the Quran by name of Idris. Your thoughts on these weird connections here with the moon god again?
Yeah. It's really connecting again. But also, as you would have mentioned, the Egyptian moon god Ea, I would have made him in the part one. I would have included it, but I made a part two, which corrected that because it's not La, it's Ea. So yeah,
Yeah.
but it's definitely is the moon god again, but it's just a different name.
So you've got Ea, or Ea, capital letter here, small letter, right, just to
Yeah.
distinguish it, who's a moon
Yeah.
god, whose name is also Thoth, whose name is also Hermes Trismegistus, whose name is also Mercury, and Hermes, whose name also happens to be Hermes. And also in Islam, Islam has the very same character called Idris, right? So Islam has exactly the same character called Idris, the second prophet mentioned in the Quran. So Ea is a moon god. Ea is Thoth, who is Hermes, who is Mercury, who is Idris. And
Oh.
Hermes Trismegistus is an occult figure, right? And he brings the
Yeah.
hikmah into Islam. And Muhammad is supposed to be a direct descendant. I don't know if it's spiritually or by birth, but Muhammad is supposed to be a spiritual inheritant, a spiritual ancestor of Idris. And then, of course, Idris, some scholars say that it comes from the poimandres, right? Idris is a corruption of mandres, okay? Dris. The poimandres is a secret occult book with secret knowledge, secret occult knowledge, the book of wisdom, the emerald tablets, also known as the emerald tablets. And of course, Islam has tablets in the sky.
Yeah,
Your thoughts
interesting.
on this?
Interesting. This is definitely linking again. Like there's some connection here, definitely, because
Yeah.
yeah, so
There's
far
more to
it's
this. There's even more to this because I mean there's more I can cover on this point. But yeah, so and then yeah, so there's not just Poimandres, which is Idris, but they also speak of other connections, other words related to the occult, to occult rituals, and all of this weird stuff that all these occult groups get into that's related to Idris. But yeah, it all ties in with Idris. That's the crazy part. I mean,
yeah,
I
that's
have showed that on
interesting.
my show before. Actually, let me do this. Let me show it for the audience. Any other comment you want to make? I'm just going to bring up some information. Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm just like so amazed at the connection that you what you research with and how it ties in with the Iya, the Egyptian moon god. So this is new for me.
Great. Yeah, I'm just going to try and bring up this reference. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to bring up. Let's hope I find the right reference quickly. So you've got Hermes. Okay. So talismans are ascribed to Hermes Trismegistus, i.e., Hermes or Hermes. Okay, and Hermes is what they call him in Arabic. So let me go to 11. Bring this up. take a moment to load because it's gonna it's okay. I'll bring this up. So Hermes, right, the alleged founder of occult science and represented by the sign of the planet Mercury, right? So then you've got that, and now let me try come to well supplement. Let me just see strange God incarnate. Come to Hermes in a second. Hermes, let me just bring up this one. Yeah. Because this one ties directly to Islam. I'll bring it up as soon as I find it, and I'll show this one, this particular reference.
Yeah, you really
As
dig really deep. I'm
yeah,
getting a lot of information out of this.
okay. So now you've got Hermes. Okay, so Gill suggested that Idris is a corruption of the name Hermes.
Mm.
That's the god Thoth, which is the god
Yeah,
Ea, which is the god Mercury, which is Hermes Trismegistus, a name that reached the Arabs in the form of Hermes, right? So Idris, the second prophet in Islam, which is connected to Muhammad, is connected to Hermes, which is connected to the moon god ultimately. And let me bring up the rest of it. And why does Islam keep you so busy? Why does so hold on? This guy says, why does Islam keep you so busy? Because we're too busy dodging Muslims killing people in Christmas markets with trucks. I've got to worry about trucks driving over me. I've got to worry about people just running wild, stabbing people. Do you know that in the last 24 hours, there were 10 attacks in Germany, knife attacks by Muslims shouting religious phrases, as they like to say, because, yeah, we've got to be running and dodging, looking over our shoulders, worrying about these jihad attacks by Muslims who they always seem to say have mental problems because I start to get the feeling Islam causes mental
yeah,
problems.
yeah, and it's definitely coming from their book and the teaching of Muhammad. So yeah, we obviously have to deal with it.
But man, I'm not finding the reference that I wanted. I will get it. I mean, I have shown it before, but basically, Hermes Trismegistus is Idris is is definitely a part of Islam. So let me see. I'll just bring up this last reference. I can't find the exact reference, specific reference I wanted. Okay, not that, but yeah, we'll skip that. So yeah, those are things that I wanted to talk about. Oh, Encyclopedia of Islam 11. Okay, wait, 3, 10, and 11. So let me bring this back up. You know what? I'm going to find this. 3, 10, and 11. So I'll look up Hermes. I'll go to those references and just find those. Hopefully, it doesn't take long to reference them. Yeah, so your thoughts though, TDK, in the meantime, what do you have to any additional thoughts you wanna add to this?
Yeah, I just like
Found
I'm
it.
amazed. Yeah, yeah, I'm amazed like at your work here, and it's really good. Also, like that previous comment, yeah, we definitely have to fight against the lie and all the corruption that Islam brings, because this is the teaching from Islam. But they would say no, they don't believe it. Some of them would say, oh, they're just being too they're taking it too serious, which is not that, and taking it out of context. But from Muhammad teaching and from all the verses in the Quran, it speaks about fighting and killing for the sake of Allah. So we obviously have to stand against injustice, as
Right,
the Lord says. Yeah, we should speak up and speak the truth and fight against the lies.
right. And a Catholic Arab, he says we
Oh
say
yeah,
Al-Ilah or Al-Rab, the
yeah, that's
Lord,
right.
right? The God of the
Yeah,
Lord. When we
yeah,
worship, it's only common to use Allah because of the influence of the Muhammadans. And yes, that's what is well known. Um, So, yeah, I mean, why are Muslims so concerned about Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and why they're so concerned about the Bible? I mean, why are they always talking about the Bible, the Bible, the Bible? And here,
yeah.
this is in the Encyclopedia of Islam, Hermes Trismegistus, that strange god incarnate, the Hellenistic name of the Egyptian god Thoth. On the other
Oh,
hand, okay, the author of philosophical, scientific, and magical works, right? Hermes Trismegistus. He passed in both of his capacities into Islam. Islam transformed the deity into one of the heroes of olden times, right?
Oh,
And he appears divided into three individuals. The first, Hermes, is identified with Enoch and Idris. So Idris in Islam was apparently an Egyptian god. And they speak of here, he lived in Egypt before the flood. Now, it should be noted that in Islam, Noah has four sons, not three sons. Noah has four sons. The fourth son is called Yamm. Yamm is a pagan deity. Yamm is the deity of water and the flood. So the other three sons get on the boat. The fourth son stays behind because he decides to stay as a pagan and he gets killed in the flood. Now, Yam is a pagan Arabian god that somehow becomes Noah's fourth son. Your
mm,
thoughts on that?
interesting. I'm still amazed at this connection again with the Egyptian god, and it's no surprise that a moon deity again, a moon god, is in connection with Islam. It's no surprise. So
Yep.
pretty clear that who Allah really is.
Yeah, let me see if I can find more on Yum. I just gotta find some stuff on Yum. Let me see if it'll bring it up fast enough. So Yum. Okay, so Yum. Let's have a look at Yum. Let's look at who Yum is connected to. So basically, Yum, the fourth son of Noah, goes against Noah, who was instructed by Allah. So Allah tells Noah to do something, and Yum goes against that. And let me see, who is Yum the major enemy of? Can you take a guess? Who is Yum the major enemy of? Yum is always fighting for control of the world with which major deity?
Mm.
Baal.
But yeah, you highlighted it. Interesting again.
So Yum always fights with Baal. Isn't that just weird? And then eventually, every year, Yum comes back as a flood because he's the god of water and the flood. So he brings a flood every year, and every year, Baal has to fight Yum and defeat Yum. And Baal has a wife, right? So hold on, let's have a quick look at this before we finish. So we have Allah, and then we have Allat. Okay, we have Baal, and then what is Baal's wife's name or the female form of Baal?
I'm not sure what is it, but oh, oh,
Baala,
interesting. Yeah, yeah,
Baala. Does it sound familiar? Baala, Baala,
yeah,
Baala.
yeah,
Isn't that fascinating? Baala.
yeah. Really
So
interesting.
So, look for the audience. Do you think that you've got all of these dangling loose ends, and they seem to be connected somehow? Do you think there's a case here for this moon deity thesis? I know it was became unpopular in the earlier 2000s, but I believe the evidence is only getting stronger. And with the software, as I can index these things and dig through sources, I think we have a case, a very strong case for Allah being a moon god. The argument over the word La, that's one dangling piece of evidence that's in the Quran of all places. But
Yeah,
besides that, wouldn't you agree we have a very strong case for attachment to pagan moon deities here?
yeah. Definitely you have a strong connection. It's just too much information, too much evidence for Allah being the moon god. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's way too much of this stuff going on. So this Yam story, the fourth son of Noah, it's so crazy. So
Yeah.
Sarah says, yeah, mental health problem. Yeah, for sure. It's yeah. And then we have to get to Harut and Marut and all of that stuff.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of he's taken so many beliefs and myths and practices, put
yeah.
them into his
So
religion.
guys, yeah, so look, I try not to go longer than this kind of time, generally an hour 20 maximum. But hopefully the audience has learned something helpful and useful. Is there anything you'd like to add? Any thoughts you'd like to add and talk about your channel a bit again? And
Yeah. I would just want to bring up this one surah.
sure. The question is, could Allah be a female
10:30.
deity? And the Sufis apparently claim that Allah is a female deity. So,
Yeah, if you could just pull it up. Uh,
yeah, which
it's
one?
7:35.
735. 735, right?
Yeah. No, 37, 37. Yeah, 37, 35.
Oh, 37, 35.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
bad.
37.
Sorry,
Yes.
my bad. I misunderstood. 37, 35. I got it this time.
Yeah, so here again, it's making the distinction between who is their God. So if you look at the Arabic, La, Ilaha, Ilah, Allah, you would see that it's saying there is no God except Allah. So it's pointing who is the God of Islam. So there's,
Right.
yeah, you have the Ilah, which is God, La, Ilah.
So hold on, La, Ilah. So where's the La? Just tell me, because I'm not gonna do
Okay,
this
the
wrong.
the Ilaha
La.
is yeah, right there. So that is the
Yeah.
word for God, Ilah or Ilaha with
Yeah.
the markings. So yeah, there is no God except Allah. So you see the Allah there. So if you look at the
Oh, yeah.
translation, you can see, yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
you see the translation there. They say that there's no God but God. But yeah, that's a silly translation. There's no
Actually,
God
hold
but
on. Let me go to
Allah.
Quran.com. So let me just go to Quran.com.
Yeah. Yeah,
37,
you could see
35.
the Arabic.
Arabic.
Yeah.
37, 35. So indeed they were when it was said to them, there is no God.
Except
I'm trying to zoom into this. There's no God except
except
Allah.
Allah. Yeah. So Ilah is the word used for God, and Allah is the God that they worship. So yeah, the moon deity.
Right. Yeah. So guys, that's it from me. That's all I have to share this evening. I thought this would be interesting. That's a
Yeah.
topic I want to come back to and talk about more because I think this moon deity thing, there's a lot of paganism in Islam. We need to come back to this. There's more and more evidence building up. It's not the same God. Allah is not the same God. It's not Yahweh. It's not the Christian God. It's not
Yeah.
the God of the Bible. So yeah.
Yeah, they try to bring that to show that, oh, it's the same God, but no, definitely the evidence is against that. So yeah, really
No, that's
interesting.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for coming on because I liked your video where you explained what you did about this use of la. I mean, that's like just an odd little, that's an odd thing, that's there. And
Yeah.
you just
Thank
have to
you for
wonder. It leaves you scratching your head.
yeah, thank you for having me here. Thank you for everyone joining the stream. It's it's a privilege being here and sharing the little bit
Yeah.
of knowledge that I have, and I really love your channel on what you do. Continue, keep up the good work and all the research that you do. It's really really great.
Oh, and by the way, you know that there's, of course, there's Alat, Manat, and Al Uzza, right? The three daughters there,
Three
right?
daughters.
Because
Yeah,
Allah gets upset. I'll talk about this in the future, but Allah gets upset
yeah,
because he gets because men are saying that Allah has three daughters, but men on earth, all the Arabs want sons. So he says, "How come
yeah,
you give me the girls and then you guys take the boys? That's not nice,
yeah.
right?" So Allah is credited with having three daughters. Just as a rough guess, which other major deity, pagan deity in Arabia and Canaan also had three daughters? Just take a wild rough guess.
Mm,
Baal.
okay. Bala has three daughters as well.
Yeah, apparently so.
Very interesting, and it's too much evidence, all connecting.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Baal has three daughters. Allah has three daughters. Wonder, could we have the same person with a different name who's, check that man for a fake passport?
Exactly. He just came with another name, came with another covering, but behind the covering, it's the moon god, the pagan practices.
Same guy. So yeah, Ball gets around. Yeah, he's a real baller. So guys, thank you very much. Yeah, look, guys, I'm traveling tomorrow. I'll be back on Thursday night, so I'm back on Friday. So Thunderous, yeah, apologies for not following up with you because man, this week it's crazy hot even right now, but it was cooler than before. It was like 35 degrees, 30 plus here in Warsaw. It was nuts. I was just it was impossible. You sit here like bathed in sweat to try and stream. But yeah, we'll catch it up next week. So guys, thank you. I hope you've learned something. Follow TDK's channel as well. And I'll see you guys soon. Also, hopefully you've enjoyed the short content I've been making. Been doing lots of short content on Ataturk and Turkey, which is basically just a very genocidal nation. Ataturk didn't change a whole lot. Trust me, he was like, yeah, people say some say he was atheist. Muslims like to say he wasn't. He was a deist. Whatever. I mean, he's all over the place. But whatever he was, he kept doing exactly the same things the crazy Ottomans did. So, except with modern clothing, with electricity. He still murdered the same number of Jews. He murdered the same number of Christians. He murdered the same number of everyone else he didn't like. So, yeah, he was killing people left and right. And yeah, so still not a nice guy. Do not believe the claims about Ataturk being a modernizer. No, no, no. He just wanted to have genocide with electricity as opposed to with candles. That's all. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, guys. So that's it. And yeah, I should talk about apartheid. Yeah. You know what? I have reached out to someone in South Africa because there's something I need from someone, and they've promised to give it to me very soon. So I will do a talk on apartheid. That should annoy everybody. So, guys, thank you very much. Have a wonderful week. I will be traveling. I might let you guys know where I am, and if anyone, um, because if anyone's in the region, I'll let you guys know and where I'll be, and maybe I can meet with anyone. Um, so yeah, well, if anyone's in the Czech Republic, let me know and I'll try and reach out. Okay. So guys, thank you very much. And yeah, thank you, TDK. It's been really, really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you
take
as
care.
well.